just souls. إن الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العرش العظيم الذي له الملك وله الحمد بديع السماوات والأرض والبقية. بديع السماوات والأرض is the one who initiates, begins the creation of the heaven and the earth. وهو البقية. He continues the creation and adds to the creation as he wills. هو البقية. هو الذي علم القرآن وخلق الإنسان. He has and continues to teach the Quran. He taught the Quran and continues to teach the Quran. So if you think you're learning it from anyone other than Allah Ta'ala, it is not so. Allah is the one علم القرآن وخلق الإنسان, and He has created the human being. وبدأ خلق الإنسان من طين. He began the creation of the human being from a sticky clay. وهو الذي علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. He علم, again in this same form, taught and teaches humanity what was not known. So as we learn, this morning we were talking about knowledge and the acquisition of knowledge and the benefit of knowledge. As we learn, anything you learn that is of benefit is coming to you from Allah. Now, Shaitan also will try to take over how we learn. And we need to know the difference between sacred knowledge, holy knowledge, knowledge that comes from Allah Ta'ala, and something that is coming from the Shaitan. And this is also not to ever feel ourselves as sufficient in and of ourselves. This is why we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. We have this as a constant statement in our everyday lives that we take, A'udhu billahi, I take my protection and my refuge with Allah minash shaitanir rajim, because I have no power over the shaitan. Allah khalaqahu, Allah created him, and Allah has power over him. My power over the evil, whether it's shaitan himself or the shayateen, the smaller ones, is with Allah Ta'ala. And so this is what we do when we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So, هو الذي علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. He taught and teaches humanity, the human one, what was not known. نحمده, we praise him. نستعينه ونتوب إليه, we seek his help and support, and we turn repentantly to him. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So having said inna alhamdulillah, that the praise and gratitude and thanks is due to Allah, we still are not complete unless we thank humanity and we thank people. So, I am grateful to you all for taking the time to come here, seeking something. And we were talking this morning about just the seeking of knowledge, that when you engage in that is a endeavor that is blessed by Allah. So, Jazakumullah khair, may Allah give you great rewards for coming. Hopefully, you are coming to learn something, and inshallah, you will not leave until you have learned something. So, this talk is on sound therapy, which is a form of healing, sound therapy, and its connection or its relation to our traditional practice of Islam. So what I'm going to do, inshallah, with Allah's permission, is to introduce the concept of sound, to help you to understand sound. We have our idea of sound, but inshallah we learn something. And then I'm going to define and give examples of sound therapy as it exists and is being practiced in the healing world today. And then I'm going to, at the last section, I will connect that to our practice in Islam. So just starting out to define sound and maybe expand our understanding of sound. Sound is the result of a vibration. And that vibration is generated by movement. So everything, movement or motion, so everything that is in motion is creating sound. You may not hear it, but there's still sound being generated. They are energetic. Sound are energetic waves. So as you're hearing my voice, this is energy being created, passing through the air to your auditory system. And the way that Allah Ta'ala created your system is to be able to perceive, otherwise you would just see my mouth moving. You know, people who are not able to hear, that's what they do. They only see your mouth moving, and then they learn to read lips, right? So, but I'm creating an energy. Every time we speak, every time we move, even every time we think, we are generating an energy that is passing through space. So that's what sound is. Sound is a vibration that is generated by motion, and then it passes through space, and it can enter and pass through anything that is expandable. Any expandable substance, whether it's solid, liquid, or gas. Sound can pass into it and perhaps pass through it. So when you think of like, sometimes why can you hear what's going on the other side of the door? And the door is closed and there's a wall, because the sound is passing through there. The vibrations of that sound are passing through a solid substance and coming to your auditory system and allowing you to hear. And sometimes you think with a little glass on the wall or whatever. But sometimes you actually can hear, and sometimes you don't even want to hear, right? But you can hear sometimes what's on the other side of the wall or outside of your house. You're hearing, and it's coming through your windows and your walls into your auditory system. So, because we as human beings are composed of solids, liquids, and gas, we are very permeable and receptive to sound. And sound has the ability to enter through our cells, and Allah speaks of that about the Quran in Surah Al-Zumar, I believe, that when you hear the Quran, you know, if you have faith, when you hear the Quran, the skin begins to prickle. And then the skin softens and the heart softens, because it goes through the skin, through your ears, into your heart. So we are, you know, sound can pass into us and pass through us, and even pass through us and travel on to others. Just like the wall cannot stop sound, another person cannot stop sound. The sound may pass through you and go to someone else. So just know that sound is vibration that passes through anything that is expansive and can affect, in its process of going in, will affect, depending on what is causing the sound, there will be some effect in the human body, the human mind, just as Allah describes the effect of the Quran, how it affects our skin, and then it affects our hearts. So sound has that ability to affect ourselves and to affect who we are. So I want to start with an ayah from the Quran. This is from Surah Yasin, actually, and أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. You recognize that كن فيكون. So it says that when Allah wants something, all He does is say kun fayakun. So the word of Allah is this kun, and if you say it and you honor the noon with the right of the noon, and you put your tongue where it should be with this letter of noon, kun, there is a vibration that is generated. So imagine the Allah's word that generates a vibration that begins to create everything that we know today. So that sound is creative. That sound is generative. And Allah continues to create as He wills and remove from creation whatever He wills, and then add something new just with kun. Whether it's a new animal, a new plant, or whatever. So there is, even before the sound, there is the intent of Allah. Like when He said to the angels, "Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa," I'm going to place on the earth a khalifa, someone who's going to take care of it and rule it after me. So there was the intent even before we were created. So there is the intent, and then there's the kun. He wants something, and then He says to it, kun fayakun. So this is sound. And even in the Bible, and I looked for it, but there is, in Genesis, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. So there is a word that precedes the creation, and that word is a vibration that then is able to create. And think about the power of your words. Okay? So the original movement initiated by just these two letters that are very capable of bringing things into being. And I looked it up in the kef, which is called the kef, kun. The kef vibrates in the spine, and the noon vibrates here. And it affects your spirituality and opens up your basara, your ability to perceive and see. So Allah has caused these things to bring forth and also cause these same letters to vibrate in us and generate things within us. So the universe, as we know from the astronomers, says the universe is still expanding. When we talk about sound passing through any expandable substance, the universe is still expanding. So that creative energy is still vibrating out and opening other pathways in the universe. So this is something. So where there was like a void, now you have a vibration. So it's something disturbing the emptiness coming through the space, and this is what we define as sound. Now for us, Allah Ta'ala says many times in the Quran that He gave us a sam'a wal basara wal af'ida. He gave us hearing and seeing and feelings. He gave us these senses. And then every time He talks about this is qalila ma tashkurun, but it's little things that you do. So we don't even think about a lot of times, because this is something we have, and we've had it. You had it prenatal. You had it pre-birth. We, as humans, hear before we see. We are hearing in the womb. That ability to hear is already established. And you know, this is like people say, oh, read to your developing baby, listen to music, just different things. The child is able to hear in the womb. And there's a system in Japan, I forget the Japanese name for it, but they try to keep the pregnant woman in very positive circumstances because they realize that everything affects that developing child. So they don't want her to hear anything negative. They don't want her to be in unpleasant circumstances. No arguing in front of a pregnant woman, And so this is something that we hear the mother's heartbeat. We hear her voice. We hear the sound of the blood that is going out from the heart and back into the heart. We hear the breath, that air coming in and out of the lungs. We hear the other voices that come around. And we begin, even in vitro, we begin to recognize. So when the child is born, definitely recognizing the voice of the mother. If there's a father present, recognizing that, and siblings too, they already know all this. When they talk about children are born knowing nothing, it's not exactly true. We know things. So we are aware of sound, and this vision comes later. So we are aware also of the changes in emotional state. You know, as the mother's voice changes from sorrow to anger to happiness, and other people's voices too as they change. We become aware of this, and this is affecting us in the womb. And so then we come into this world, and everything is generating sound. We don't realize that sound is all around us. This fan is generating sound. Now, I don't necessarily, but if I could get up there closer, I probably could hear it. And there are beings generating sound. And there's a hadith of the Prophet that, and it's in the 40 hadith, I believe. The 40, you know, the little small book 40 hadith, and it says, Subhanallah walhamdulillah tamlana ma bayna as-sama'i wal-ard. These tasbih of Subhanallah walhamdulillah are filling, tamlan, these two things fill the space between the heaven and the earth. So we are being surrounded by sound that is inaudible to us, to our system. But to know that it is there is very helpful, because then knowing certain things and being aware of it, when you see a leaf blowing on a tree or a blade of grass blowing, or you see the bee and the wings are, you know, vibrating quickly, all that is generating sound, all of it. We just don't necessarily hear it. So there is sound that is perceptible to us, our auditory system. So we hear between 20 and 20,000 hertz. That's a pretty wide range, it seems like. 20 and 20,000 hertz, and which is represented just Hz. And that is just a name given to a frequency of vibration to some man who discovered these vibrations. So a hertz basically is one vibration per second. So you can hear 20 vibrations per second up to 20,000 vibrations per second. If it goes under the 20, that's called infrasound. It's below our ability to hear. And if it goes above the 20,000, it's called ultrasound. Now, I'm sure if you haven't heard of infrasound, you've heard of ultrasound. Above 20,000 hertz is ultrasound. Now, this is our hearing range. But we know that very often we have a sense of something, even if we don't hear anything, it's like, what's happening or what's going on, you know? And you're looking around and there's nothing, but something in you is saying, I heard that, I heard something. But then you don't see anything and you don't understand where it's coming from. So we have a perceptive, what you call, our hearing range is in this realm, but we can hear sense in our senses. We hear things that we can't hear actually perceived in the hearing range. So the thing about infrasound, if we think of what's beneficial and what's not, infrasound, meaning below that 20 hertz, is actually being used in military systems and maybe some psychological things. And animals communicate. A lot of times animals are communicating with infrasound. Like, the barking of the dog is not the only speech of the dog. And they used to think that giraffes didn't talk because you didn't hear any sound. But now they know that giraffes are communicating, it's just not in our hearing range. So animals very often are communicating with this infrasound, meaning below our hearing range. But the thing about infrasound and why it's being used like for military things is because it creates a disturbance in our emotional system. It can generate fear, anxiety, uneasiness, confusion, a lot of negative type things that can be when you get exposed to infrasound. And the thing about ultrasound, which we also can't hear, is that it has been studied and been found to affect neurological health, the health of our nervous system. So Yale Medical School and some universities in Europe, Glasgow, and some place in Switzerland also, have said definitely we see the signs of neurological damage, but we haven't come to a conclusion as to how much damage is being done. Now, the disturbing thing about this to me, and I would hope to everyone, is that ultrasound is frequently and often repeatedly on a single pregnant woman being used to invade the womb while the child is developing. So if you're saying that there's this possibility even of it creating neurological damage, why are we continuing to expose a developing human being to this ultrasound and act like it's wonderful? You know, like this new scientific ability that we have to see inside where we have no business seeing. Allah said He placed that child under 3 veils of darkness. If it was meant for us to see, there would have been no window. And there isn't. So anyway, I just want other people to think. There are things that I just want you to think about, because so much is happening, so much is passing over, we don't even think about it. And there are a lot of damaging things that we are being exposed to, that we are exposing others to, because we don't stop and think about it. So, this is sound. And within this aspect of sound, there's also what's called noise. Because sound, like I said, everything makes sound, right? Everything, the wind, and this is so interesting. When the wind blows on the tree, branch, or the grass, the sound that it makes depends on the thickness of the leaf or the branch and the speed of the wind. So there are many different sounds being created because there could be grains like corn and wheat, or just simple grasses, or trees that have different palm trees that have different types of fronds on them, and then regular trees that have branches. So depending on what it is, there's going to be a different sound. It's like an orchestra going on all around us. And I realized this when a couple of decades ago, I was living in Germantown, Maryland, and it was raining and it was night. And I was looking out the window, and we were in a condo that was on the second floor. I was looking out the window, and I was watching the raindrops fall and hit the cars, the leaves on the trees, the sidewalk, the earth, beside the sidewalk. And I was realizing there's a different sound every object that is being hit. I couldn't hear it. But I realized that it's like an orchestra, like the different sounds in an orchestra or different instruments. There's things going on all around us all the time. So it's just an awareness. So that's sound. That's what sound is, and sound is happening all the time. We're generating sound. Even as you sit there and think, you're generating sound. And that's why we have to be careful of what we're thinking and how we're looking, because we're sending out vibrations that are affecting others. And Allah says, in Surah Al-Baqarah, He says, whether you make known what is in yourself or you hide it, Allah will call you to account for it, because your condition is affecting others. What you're thinking, even if you're speaking in a whisper, it's going out and affecting beings and the energy in the area around you. So now, what is sound therapy? When we talk about sound therapy, this is a system of sensory therapy. Sensory because sound is part of our senses. And it applies vibrational frequencies, different frequencies, that, and also musical tones, that gently massage the cells, and then they can create, and do create if it's done properly, something that it says almost miraculous ability to heal. Almost miraculous capacity for healing, ability to heal. And so, and this healing is So you can be holding emotional trauma in your body, and you can have physical trauma in your body that's creating chronic disease, like high blood pressure, diabetes, joint illnesses, pains, or whatever, headaches. And these type of sound therapy healing can begin to remove these things. Now how, so this is that when you, so the vibration, this vibration works because it passes into your body, like we said, goes through your cells, into your organs and tissues, and begins to restructure and allow these organs and tissues to release things that are toxic and harmful. So, going between two documents here. Bear with me. So, in this system, it's not a new system. And we know that this system has been around since really the beginning of time. As you expose yourself to different sounds, like why do people just go to the mountain, just sit, or just listen to the birds in the morning, or go to the ocean and you just listen to the sound of the waves? So sound therapy has been something that's been done really since the beginning of creation. But in the system of Chinese medicine, there's a book that was written over 2,300, so 2,300 years ago. And in that book, there's reference to a music therapy related to their 5 elements. So the Chinese have a 5-element system. It's like the fire, water, earth, wood, and air. And so they set up a system where there was a note to go with each one of these systems. And those systems relate, for like wood relates to the liver and the gallbladder, and the fire relates to the heart and circulatory system. So each one of these elements relates to a particular system in your body, and then they took a musical note to affect each one of these. And this stuff is so, notes that we know now as part of the musical scale. And I won't go into, each one of them, but just the fire, which is the heart and the circulatory system, that note is G in that Chinese system. And so, and that, these are information that's available to you on, if you want to do any research on it. So, it's an old system of healing. Before prescription medicines and, these other things that they have that they do to people, horrible things that they do to people. But there's something called bioacoustics, okay? So, and it's the study of sounds that organisms make. For instance, the sounds that even the earth, the sun, because NASA now, and you can find this on the internet if you want to, NASA has recorded the voice of the sun and slowed it down because it's above the 20,000 hertz on our hearing. They slowed it down so that we could hear it. So, and they've recorded voices of other bodies out in the universe. So you can listen. So it says, so bioacoustics is the science of what sounds organisms are making and then the effects that those sounds are having on others. So the human voice, so we are part of this bioacoustic, which is just the live sound system. We are part of it. So the human voice is one of the amazing instruments of change and healing. We can transform others with our voices, with our choice of words, with the emotion that is in our words. And we can make people feel better or worse. And we can begin to heal depending on what we use our voice for. So, our sounds, meaning the voice, the human voice, is perceptible to every animal, to every being that exists. Everything responds to the human voice. That's part of, who we are, who Allah created us to be. Everything can hear us. And we also, our own voice is the best healing sound for ourselves. You might not think so, but your body will respond to your own healing effort. If you use your voice to try to heal yourself, your body will respond to that more than to the voice of anyone else. So when we talk about the places in our own system that are responsive more to sound than to other, every cell in our body is responsive to sound. But there are certain concentrated parts where they're called in Sanskrit chakras, they're called in the Islamic tradition al-Latifiyya, meaning the subtle places related to the name of Allah, al-Latif. And they, in science, just science, these are places where the nerve plexi intersect and they become nerve centers. And we have them all the way down the front and up the back of our body. In fact, they start generating in the back and then come to a fruition in the front of our bodies. And we have 7 major ones. So where these nerve plexi intersect like 21 times, those are the major ones. And then there are smaller ones other than that. But they're called the 7 energy centers. And there are notes also that go with each one of those. But before I just go into that, because that's what these are here for. But anyway, each one of these centers has a sound that it responds to, has a note that it responds to, and has a particular vibration. Everything in your body does not vibrate at the same speed. Every organ has a different vibration, and therefore responds to a different vibration and a different musical tone. And when you make certain sounds, how many of you had like grandparents or even your parents that used to hum a lot? Humming, right? And someone told me that they were in their church and something was going on and the women just all automatically started humming. And then they opened the windows to let in fresh air and new energy. And that humming was purifying that church and beginning to heal whatever was happening there. Was something negative going on, I don't remember. But they just started humming. My grandmother used to hum all the time. And I know it was a church hymn she was humming. But the thing is, even when you say the word hum, you hear the meme, which is el-hamd. When we said that the hamdulillah and the subhanallah are filling space between the heaven and the earth, that humming is something that is holy and healing. So when you begin to understand how to use sound and tie into sound, and if you learn how sound is used in our tradition in Islam, you begin to heal and bring health to yourself, and inshallah begin to, if you're on medication, begin to heal yourself. So we think of sound, when we think of sound related to Al-Islam, we probably think of adhan, which happens if you're in an Islamic country. You're going to hear that adhan coming through the microphones, so many times a day, and you're going to hear it more than 5 times, because it'll go off in this neighborhood, and a few seconds later or a minute later, it's going to go off in another neighborhood. And so it's like an echoing vibration, continuing sound. And it is said that there is never a time in the universe when the adhan is not being said. Somewhere. 24/7. All the time. Who was the astronaut that said he could hear it out in space? Was that Neil Armstrong? Somebody said they could hear it out in space. It is something that is going on eternally. Well, almost eternally. Constantly here. So we think of that. That's something. What else do we think of when we think of sound? Perhaps our audible salat, which is like Fajr and Maghrib and Isha, and anything we might get up and say in the night. And we might think of the dhikr, you know, those who sit and repeatedly say, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. We think of these type of things, or Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, things that people will say over and over and over in our tradition, right? And these are all beneficial because they have meaning. People like the that you hear the yogi people do, and I'm not downing yogi people because I'm a yoga instructor. I'm not downing them, but what the thing is, what does it mean? We don't want to just say things that have no meaning. When we say Alhamdulillah, we know what we're saying. We know it has meaning, and we know that we get, when we come up from the ruku', and when we go into the ruku', we say Subhanallah al-Azim. When we come up and the Imam says, or we say Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. There's something that gets added to that. I don't know if you've heard it. Alhamdan kathiran wa tayyiban wa mubarakan fi. When you say Rabbana wa lakal hamd, this is something that many people add, because I believe this came from the son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not when, okay, so it wasn't actually the Prophet, it was a Sahaba in the time of the Prophet who was saying it, and somebody said, oh Muhammad, this man is saying this. And he called him and he says, you know, oh, you're saying this? He said, this is a good thing. So after he says, Rabbana wa lakal hamd, he was saying, Alhamdan kathiran wa tayyiban wa mubarakan fi, which means much hamd, much praise, much gratitude, and much good will come from this, and much blessing, mubarak. Well, mubarak, there's barakah in this, alhamdulillah. So when we say certain things that we would use, sort of like a mantra, if we want to repeat something over and over, we know what we're saying. We know that it has benefit. Even the very name of Allah. Just if you say Allah, you know, some of the Sufis, that's what they do. Allah, 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 over and over and over. Now, I'm not promoting that. But the fact is, every letter of the Arabic language has a hasanat built into it, and when you use it, Allah will multiply that good. Hasanat means something good, something beautiful, something good will come of it. So in the three letters that make up the name of Allah, the alif, the lam, and the ha, these letters, the way that they vibrate in our bodies, and again, remember that Allah has said, this sound will penetrate your pores and go into your heart. When you just use the name of Allah, there's a central electrical system that comes down the center of our bodies and goes up the center of our backs through our spine. The name of Allah, the alif is pronounced from here. This is the makhraj. This is where the sound comes from, but it vibrates here. The lam is pronounced inside the mouth, in the front of the mouth, with your tongue pressing against the hard palate. But it vibrates in your throat. And the ha on the end of the name of Allah, which is a letter that comes from here, again, from the bottom of your throat, but it vibrates in your heart. So when you say the name of Allah, you're generating energy straight down the front of your body. And that energy doesn't stop there. It curves and then begins to go back up. So when you say Allahu, La, because the lam alif, is centered at the base of your spine. So when you say Allahu la ilaha, you send energy down, you send energy up, and now it just doesn't go down. When you vibrate, you start a vibration, it goes out. So the organs that are on both sides, in your throat, your thyroid, your parathyroid, in your chest, your heart, your lungs, going down into the liver, the gallbladder, everything, and then coming back up, you know, recreating that energy coming up the back of the spine. You're beginning a healing process just by doing some, the pronouncing the name of Allah and making a tasbih stating that there is no God, la ilaha illallah. You say it with intent, say it with attention. Slow yourself down and say it aloud, because it is in the vibration of the sound that you are generating with your voice that there is power. There is power. So Allah, I say, let me see where قال الله تعالى في كتابه في سورة الإسراء. Okay, in Surah 17, Allah has said, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. وَنُنَزِّلُ, we repeatedly send down from the Quran, from this exalted recitation, what has healing, وَرَحْمَةٌ, and mercy لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, for those who believe, who have faith. So, when Allah Ta'ala talks about the healing embedded in our tradition, in our book, in our recitation, He uses the word Quran. Quran is the vocal aspect of the revelation. Kitab is the written. Kitab is the print, ink on paper. That's what Kitab is. It's a written document. But Quran is the spoken. And when Allah speaks about the healing embedded in Islam, it is the Quran, it is the spoken. So when you're going to use these things for healing, do it aloud. Let the vibration of your voice, using the letters and the words of Allah Ta'ala, affect you, affect your inner self. It is from a book that's called The Spiritual Cure that is exclusively devoted to the Fatiha. It says the opening of the book is a cure for every poison. Know that the Quran is a cure for every illness. Allah made the verses of his book with a marvelous language, which is understood by the cells. This is very powerful. Allah made the verses of his book, the ayat of his book, with a marvelous language which is understood by the cells. When Allah's words fall upon afflicted cells or diseased cells, which are weary and diseased, they are stimulated, new life returns to them, and they become more able to resist illness. This is why reciting verses upon particular diseases can heal by the permission of Allah. Allah said, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah said that He continually, repeatedly sends through this recitation what is healing and mercy. So why is every single Muslim not using this Quran to heal? I don't know. Instinctively, some things will happen. It used to be when I was emotionally overwhelmed, distraught, and didn't know what else to do, I would lay on the floor, stretch my arms out because I didn't want anything to touch me, not even my own hands. And I would put the Quran on, and I would listen, and I would fall asleep. And when I woke up, I was better. The cells understand the words of Allah. And this has been proven. There was a scientific study done back in the 80s. Down in Panama City, Florida. He's rahimahullah because he's passed on. And he did a study. And he's a doctor, Dr. Ahmed, I was a medical doctor. And he took the three groups, you know, you're going to do a science thing, you got to have your control groups. So he had the Muslims who spoke Arabic, understood Quran and believed in it, because every Arab doesn't believe, you know, we got Christian Arabs, Hindu Arabs, whatever. So Arabs who were Muslim, they believed in the Quran, they understood it. Muslims who believed in the Quran but didn't understand it, and then non-Muslims who neither believed in it nor understood it. Three different groups. Had them all, he tested their blood first. Took blood samples, tested their blood, had them all listen to the same thing, checked the blood again. Every single group had a reaction. The Muslims who understood and believed had the greatest increase in the white blood cells, and their immune systems were stronger. The next group, second, in terms of the benefits. The third group, less, but still a benefit. So the question, why? Are these people who don't believe in the Quran, don't understand it, why are they getting a benefit in their immune system, in their cells, in their blood? Conclusion, created matter recognizes the words of the Creator. Created matter recognizes the words of the Creator and will respond to the words of the Creator, whether you consciously are aware of that or whether you consciously accept that or not. But we who know, we should be using these things for our own benefit. We can say that the Quran has a cure for all diseases, regardless of whether it is psychological, physical, whether it is the spells of the shaitan, the satanic touching or presence of shaitan, because Allah, in speaking about the healing of the Quran, has not limited the healing except saying that it's for the believers. He didn't say, well, this is only for what's in your heart, or this is only for what's in your mind, or this is... He didn't limit it. He said, نَزِلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ. Period. I put healing into this Quran. That's Surah 17. But then in Surah Fussilat, in Surah 41, it says, قُلْ هُوَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا هُدًى وَالشِّفَاءٌ. Say that he, meaning the Quran, is for those who believe, guidance, and healing. It's a general thing. It's not limited. It's a holistic healing. It will benefit you in whatever problem you have. So, it says that in every ayah of the Quran, this is again from some from this book, Gift of Healing, and some from the spiritual cure, which I didn't bring, which is devoted to sort of the Fatiha only. It says, in every verse of the Quran, Allah Ta'ala has put a hidden language that can remove illness by His permission. Every letter has multiple benefits. Every word has many benefits. So every ayah has so many benefits we don't even know. It says, your body is most responsive to your own voice. And the research shows that our own voices are most effective in healing us. And that, I think, came from this particular book. So, that's the best thing that we can use, is our own voices reciting Quran. However, if you don't recite Quran, you don't have the ability to recite Quran, the very least that you should do is like what I said I used to do when I was just emotionally overwhelmed. Just listen. Just listen, because you will recognize in that study, the inner self recognized the words of Allah Ta'ala and there was benefit. And just because I don't feel anything, that's because your conscious intelligence is lower than your inner intelligence. You know, so just understand that too. That we have a higher intelligence existing within us that is greater than our consciousness, because our consciousness has been affected by many other things in this world. So we should be using that, the Quran first, and being aware of, the effect of different letters and words upon our physical bodies. But Allah Ta'ala has given us other things, like we use herbs, we use food, we use, different things And all of these things should come before prescription chemical medicines. So this, what I'm just going to sort of demonstrate for you today is something relatively new when we talk about, healing sounds being over 2,000 years old, and that's only in the Chinese system, and older than that if we think about Islam and the Prophet Adam and all of the prophets and believers that, existing from the beginning of humanity. So let's say that this is relatively, it was developed because the people that developed this believe that inside of us there are crystalline structures, and that the crystal bowls in their sound can affect the crystalline structures in their right. Now, it is said that the sounds from the crystal bowls will affect your the inner cells. Well, the Tibetan bowls, which are brass, and I forgot to bring them today, the brass bowls will affect your muscles more, so help to relax your muscles, which is why they're used to prepare people for meditation. But these bowls, and there are, I only have these three, because they can get very expensive, and I'm not making a career out of this, so I didn't order all of them. Just these three cost me over $200, and put it that way, but there are many, but they're designed to vibrate to these major energy centers that I mentioned. And so that if you use these sounds, they do what is called a sound bath. And so what people do is just sit, relax, begin to deep breathe, and then close their eyes and just open themselves to sound. And then the sound bath therapist will use different things, chimes and these bowls and Tibetan bowls and different things to create different sounds, and these sounds are designed to vibrate to different organs in the body. So I'm just going to do a brief demonstration. It says that the bowls, not necessarily the crystal bowls, but the Tibetan bowls have been around for 3,000 years. And they always, prior, were made of metals, but these are made from quartz crystal, because like I said, they believe that we have crystal structures within our bodies that will respond to this. So just going to give you some, like a brief example of this, and I'm not, like a skilled technician or anything, but it's relatively new to me. So this particular bowl is designed to vibrate to what's called your root chakra. What's interesting about that root chakra is the lowest one, is that the sound is lam, which relates very much to our Islamic system. Some years ago I did a retreat. In fact, I've done this retreat several times, Steps on the Journey of La. La, if you know Arabic, means no. So, and it also is the first word in our kalima, La ilaha illallah. So, I did a whole weekend, Steps on the Journey of La, because life, to me, is being able to reject, to push away the negative, to clear the space so that you can move into positivity and move forward. And you have to learn to recognize what you need to reject. And you can't get to the end of our kalima, illallah, without going through the la ilaha, right? You have to pass through that negative to get to the positive. So that's why I did that. So that's the interesting thing about this particular sound, is that it relates, you can see where you feel it vibrating, to that root chakra, whose sound is lam. So these relate to your energy center. Well, 3 of your energy centers. You've got 7. I didn't get 7. But anyway, this one is the root chakra. This one is your heart, and this one is your intuitive point, third eye. So
the first one says which
your root chakra, which is at the base, underneath. Basically, the reproductive area, like woman, men.
And the 7 of them.
Well, this is the bottom one. This is 1, and this is 5, and this is 6. No, this is because heart. So it's root, sacral, solar plexus, then heart. So this is 4, and then this is 6, and then the crown is 7. There's a throat in between. So this is 4, and then there's the 5th one is in your throat. And then so what happens is as this is vibrating again, that vibration generates those centers where those nerves are intersecting, and then that energy goes out to the organs that are related to those areas and begins to generate healing. And Allah, I consider these halal because it's, it's percussion and it's just sound. And sound, as I said, sound is ubiquity. Sound is everywhere. And most of it that's happening we don't hear. But there's a saying, beautiful saying, that the first flute was a gift of the woodpecker to the wind. So the woodpecker pecks the hole, the wind blows through, the music is created. So the sound is everywhere. And Allah has made sound part of the reality that surrounds us within and without. So sound is being generated within us, sound is being generated without us. We are in sound, whether we want to be in sound or not, because there is no silence. Silence is not possible.
Some people can't stand silence. They can't.
There is quiet, but there's no silence, because everything is making noise, whether it's in your hearing level or not. So we're in sound. And may Allah, enable us to just recognize and respect and honor sound. The sound of the malaik, the sound of the birds, the sound of the wind, the sound of the water, just sound. And the sound of our own hearts, trying to speak to us, our own inner voices trying to speak to us, to honor. Because the more that you honor, the more it comes. As Allah Ta'ala said in Quran, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you're grateful to me, I'm going to give you more. So be grateful for the ability to hear, because everybody doesn't have it. And then to be grateful for the sounds that are provided, and to say, we love from the sounds that we don't want to hear, and that we look forward to the Jannah when we will hear nothing but pleasantness. So, but to be grateful and to just understand it. This is something that is part of our reality.
To check my notes, so about 3 things. 1, you said no noise affects spirituality from here, center forehead. And then the sound from your spine was
Kef.
cat.
The kef.
Okay. All right.
So,
Three-part question.
And then, well, I'll just do 2. Then, when you got to the bowls, the crystal affects the inner body, and you said the brass affects the
Muscles.
muscles.
More so. The sounds that the brass, the Tibetan bowls make, affects and relaxes the tension and stress in the muscles.
Okay. I think that's okay. If I find another one, I'll let you know. Super.
But the makeup of a bowl that's crystal, you say it's that same makeup as in
We have crystals. Yeah, we have crystals within us. Yeah, crystals are part of you've seen crystals. I mean, crystal rocks, So salt, salt is a crystalline structure. Sugar is a crystalline structure. So we have crystalline structures within us.
So, by practicing sound or paying attention to the sound, I'm supposed to be brought down to a more calm
Not
Is
necessarily.
that,
Well,
When I go to the beach,
you
that's
calm
it.
yourself and breathe to experience it,
Mm.
but what this is doing is penetrating you and stimulating your cells to be in a better condition. It's going inside. And so that it's a healing thing. As well as, you may feel more calm and more peaceful, but it's actually generating healing in the cellular level.
so like the sound of the waves coming in, I go to the beach and sit on the shore and then the waves coming in. What's happening to me from that
Because
sound?
that's the same sound that your blood is making in your body, just on a larger scale. That in and out, when the blood flows out, and then it comes back to the heart, that's the same motion as the waves, it's the same. So that when you hear, they say, oh, put the shell to your ear, and you're basically hearing your own blood surge through your, veins.
And when I sit down, be in a quiet place and listen to my boom, boom, boom,
Your heart.
heartbeat, that's that one. I listen to my heartbeat. What am I supposed to recognize in that?
Well, it depends on what condition your heart is in.
Well, it's a no condition.
But, your heartbeat is the heartbeat of the universe. That's what drums are about. That's what native drums are about, right? Is tying into the rhythm of the universe. So when you think about it, and I wrote about this in my book, it's my most probably remember, that we say, so the child's heartbeat is generated by the rhythm of the heartbeat of the mother. So the mother's heartbeat is started by the rhythm of the heartbeat of her mother. You take that back. So from where did the original heartbeat come? When Allah created Adam, He gave Adam and Hawa heartbeats. This came from Allah Ta'ala. So when your heart is in the proper condition, then you are tuned into a rhythm that is divine. It's not that easy, I don't think, to get our hearts in that condition, or let me put, not to get it, but to keep our hearts in that condition. I think our hearts go in and out of that very stable and primordial rhythm. We can get there, but keeping our hearts there is the difficulty.
I have one question. I know we speak about therapeutic. I'm a woman, I walk in the gardens. There was one day, it was a little windy. I actually heard the leaves hitting the ground. And you talking about being in tune, it just took me to a whole different level of serenity.
Right.
And I was like, only thing I could say was alhamdulillah. It was so easy. And I just wish everybody could be out here doing this.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And
That is true. And it's called mindful walking, actually. There's a term for it.
Yeah.
That where you walk and you're experiencing all that is happening in nature around you. Because you are just being conscious. Did you say something?
Yes, you mentioned the Islamic tradition is called al-Waqifiyya.
The centers are called al-Latifiyya. Yeah, Latifiyya. Meaning the subtle places. So the thing about al-Latif, the name al-Latif, the name of Allah, which is one of the al-Latif is one of the Asma al-Husna. Al-Latif means the one who is subtle, imperceptible, but yet so powerful, right? So that is the thing about our energy centers. We don't even realize they're there. I mean, how many years you did, and you're like, what? I got what? So they're very subtle, they're very powerful, and they need to be open, active, and connected. And that's the thing about them also. So, when I studied holistic healing, we studied this healing of these things, and you learn to sense them and sense their spin, because they're the motion. So there is should be a healthy clockwise motion in each one of them, but then there's elliptical moving because of their interchange, how they're exchanging energy with each other. So it's something, when you learn to sense it. But I never knew about it before.
Well, is there like a Islamic science kind of thing, or if someone wants to learn more about that, they need to learn about chakras and the other systems.
Yeah, I don't know of anything that's been written Islamically, but so even I learned that name from a Sufi sheikh. You know, what I mean, a lot of things you don't hear like the average person talking about it because they try to stay away from certain things because it's almost like they think they're getting into a field that might lead them to shirk or something, you know. But this sheikh, it was from Palestine, you know, very spiritual and understood things, and he was very much into natural healing, and so you know he was aware of them. And so knowledge, see, this is what knowledge is the property of the Muslim. All good knowledge is our property. So when we find it, we have the right to take it. Doesn't mean we got to go into, you know, let's see what the names of the Hindu gods are. What's that word that they're using over there? We just take the good because this belongs to me. You know, it's like when Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam found the Jews, Bani Israel. I'm trying to get away from calling these people Jews. Found Bani Israel in Medina fasting, and it was on, you know, I think it was the Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. And it's like he said, you know, why are you fasting? He said, well, this is the commemoration when Musa took us, you know, out of bondage. And he said, well, Musa's my brother. I have more right to that than you do, you know. So it's like, I'm taking it, you know. So now he's like, our people need to start doing this, but so we don't not just like then let's fast the day before and the day of or day of and day after. We want to do it a little different. But when we find something, it belongs to us, of good. When we find something of good, it's ours, and we should take it and take the benefits of it, and then leave the rest, the corruption, because you know, there's much that has been corrupted that started out as pure knowledge, that started out as beneficial knowledge, and it's gotten corrupted. So, but we find and take the good and leave the rest.
I was going to say, I'm glad you said that because I was sitting there thinking my husband's grandmother, and it said that she could take the fire out of a burn by the words that she said. You know, and it's like people put you in a position to say, oh, you know, that's spooky, that's this, that's the other, and we've lost so much of what it is that we could have had. Yeah, that's the healing properties. And I know his uncle, he says uncle could go out and get all kinds of leaves for curing, you know, that sort of thing. And so this is very interesting, and it's just like you gave me, I'll say just me, permission to open up to something more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now these chakras, total 12?
No, the major ones are 7, but there are minor ones. So the seven major ones is where your nerves, they're called plexi. They intersect 21 times in those major ones, and then you have minor ones where they may intersect 14 or 7 or something, but usually a multiple of 7. So the 7 major ones is where your nerves come and intersect 21 different times and create this center of high energy.
I was reviewing this, reading something on the chakras as well, and that the Buddhist monks, when they're chanting or doing their meditation, they have this sound. It's supposed to be so effective for them as well.
Well, the is a universal sound that comes from the hamd. But see, they only got a part of it. It's alhamdulillah. That's what's permeating the universe, and that's what people can tune into, and we should. But see, they've got a part of it. And I don't think that they really truly understand it. I don't know, because I haven't talked to the monks. But I don't think they really understand. But they're onto something. It's incomplete, I'll put it that way.
Well, yeah, whatever it is, it helps them a lot. Their energy is pretty strong. And I was reading that they can use their energy to defend themselves. They don't even have to touch. They can be at least 6 feet away.
Yeah.
Use their energy to ward off their enemy if they need to. So. The reason I mentioned the seven chakras, I also found that they related to the astrological.
Well, the 7, well, 7 is, look, you've got 7 heavens, 7 samawat, the 7 heavens, 7 ayat of the Fatiha, 7 days of the seven is something that is, you're going to find the seven repeating all through different levels, physical and spiritual, right? So, 7 sacraments in different, Catholic and maybe some other traditions. So that 7 is going to, and we too have evolved in layers of 7, because that's just a sunnah of Allah. So the 7, and I've said this in my class, 7 represents structural completion. So that, and in the Catholic Church, as you evolve and become more mature, right, you go through those 7 sacraments, right? From the first communion to your confirmation to your whatever up until you get. So I don't remember them all now. But
me neither. I was sitting here at 12 years of Catholic school, and I was like,
No, you didn't.
what were they? Yeah, 12 years.
yeah, well, but 7 is a structural completion. And it doesn't mean 7, could be 70, 700, 7,000, 7 whatever. But it's 7 and multiples of 7 that represent structural completion. We don't know how many heavens are above us. Could be 7 million, we don't know. But it's something related to 7. So the 7 is a spiritual number. It's a spiritual number.
Yes,
Allah uses it in the Quran, and we have it in different forms in our society. You can't get away from it because you got 7 days a week.
Oh yeah, but they used to be calendars with less than 7 days. Some with more than 7 days a week. So in Egyptian, they had calendars that were not actually 7 days a week. So we can get rid of it in this society. But we can't get rid of it if we establish our own society.
Well, it's not meant. So the 7, as I said, is structural completion. So that cycle is complete with 7. So you won't be messing with stuff. And that's something that Allah does speak about in the Quran, and changing the months, because He says the months were 12 from the time that He created the universe. So if you got a calendar with more than 12 months or less than 12 months, that's a corruption. So we have to be careful not to just say, well, we can do this, we can do that. No, you could, but it would be a deviation of divine structure. So let's, just try to stay with what seems to be proper.
I just have a comment. When you were doing the first one, and you said it means let.
The sound is let,
and you said it was negative. And then as it vibrated, it made the same sound that the microphone makes, that makes you go crazy. And I was just saying, oh, but that's negative. You don't want that. The microphone is making that noise. It annoys everyone. And the only other comment I had is we didn't at all talk about the brain and because you were saying it's healing, even for mental health and these kinds of things. And I was just trying to understand.
There is a letter, the mean vibrates in the brain. But in Chinese medicine, they don't talk about the brain. They call the brain a curious organ. They talk about the heart. The heart is the emperor. The heart is the leader. And Allah Ta'ala focuses on the heart in the Quran. He doesn't talk about the brain. And what you learn as you study, and those of you who have read the book, you understand that the heart is supposed to be the programmer of the brain. So the brain it receives and restructures, and then it sends stuff to the physical body, but the brain is not supposed to be in charge.
Right.
Not intended.
Well, if we remember that the Quran was revealed in the heart, that might help as well, as opposed to this couldn't take it. The mountains couldn't even hold it, so this could. And it's a weighty message. That's it.
Thank you.
That's it. With the books.
No, we must be everyone.
Yeah, he asked the questions that we already know the answers to, right?